Hello and welcome. I am Devika Chopra and you are watching Newsx World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. After Friday's devastating 7.7 magnitude earthquake hit Myanmar, the death toll has climbed to 1,600. The military junta starts allowing aid from China, India and Russia. In Bangkok, 17 people are dead as the search for survivors continues. Anti-coup rebels in Myanmar, led by the People's Defence Force, declare a 2-week ceasefire to allow earthquake relief. This comes as the junta continues bombing parts of the country after the earthquake. Hamas says it supports a ceasefire in Gaza amid ongoing Israeli airstrikes. The Arab mediator-backed plan would see 5 hostages freed for a 50-day truce. Meanwhile, Hamas has released a new video of a hostage held in Gaza. During a visit to Japan, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has vowed robust, ready and credible deterrence in the Indo-Pacific, including the Taiwan Strait. In Tokyo, Hegseth calls Chinese actions aggressive and coercive. In Europe, Ukraine accuses Russia of war crime with military hospital strike in Kharkiv, damaging the building and wounding military personnel undergoing treatment while killing 2 others in a drone attack in the region. Wildfires continue to rage on in South Korea, with the death toll now at 30. South Korean police launch a probe into a man suspected of accidentally igniting the blaze that has burned down more than 48,000 hectares of land. In Moscow, President Putin's limousine has exploded on a city street in a possible assassination attempt. The vehicle, part of the president's official fleet, is engulfed in flames at the Secret Service headquarters in visuals that have now released. Hundreds of thousands in Turkey continue to protest the jailing of Istanbul Mayor Imamoglu. The arrest of Erdogan's main rival sparks the biggest protests in a decade. Out of focus right now is Myanmar. At the moment, 1,644 people are known to have died in the devastating earthquake which hit Myanmar on Friday, the strength of which was so severe that tremors were felt in neighboring Thailand. Myanmar's military leadership has said that 3,408 people are injured as a result of the earthquake, with 139 still missing. One woman was pulled from the rubble after being trapped for more than 30 hours in Mandalay, Myanmar, where at least 90 people are believed to be trapped under a collapsed apartment block. Meanwhile, a 5.1 magnitude aftershock has jolted Myanmar's second largest city, Mandalay, and the situation in Myanmar continues to be grim. My colleague Brian Thomas joins us live from Thailand. Brian, take our viewers firstly through the latest update that you're receiving from the ground.
Well, Devika, definitely, talking about the latest update that we are getting from Chatuchak also, where we are right now. We are at Chatuchak's, market area. You can see this entire place has been cordoned off, and as per latest, the information that we are getting from the sources as well, the Thailand sources, to the fact that right now more than 100 people are still, missing because of that 30-story building that was a part that fell. That was a part of the earthquake, and this entire place, this is a market area. This entire place has been cordoned off by the Thailand City Police, by the authorities, and you can see these places. This entire road has been barricaded as well, so no vehicular movement is allowed. And apart from that as well, you can see official vehicles are only allowed to enter when they open these barricades. Apart from that, you can see relief items mobile units have also been deployed at several places in this vicinity, where if anyone needs any ready-to-eat supplies, any medicine, so the authorities, the locals are providing all that. You can see wet wipes, you can see these food items. All of these are made available for the public or the families who have who are here to find the people, because this 72-hour window is the most crucial window, because that is that very chance when you get to understand what the situation remains. And even now the death toll at this very place has risen to 11 itself, because just a while back also another person's mortal remains was also found out from the debris, from the rubble itself. Devika.
All right, Brian, how exactly are people now working on the ground? What is the latest that you can share as far as aftershocks, tremors and other such situations are concerned? Has the situation in Thailand become a little normalized?
The place that we are at, the Chatuchak's main market, that is definitely feeling the aftershock is there, because since the 30-story building is 500 meters away from here, this entire road itself has been, cordoned off, has been stopped of any vehicular movement. But on the other hand, if you see all over Bangkok, yes, the city has come back to normal. The metros, the trains are all running smoothly. The traffic flow has become smooth as well. You can even see the traffic police also are here. The PFRT officials are also on duty. But yes, if we show you the visuals of the traffic movement, you can see a smooth traffic flow that is happening. But in general, Bangkok is not at all affected right now, because the airport operations are also running smoothly. It is this one such place, that is the Chatuchak market, that is that building, the 30-story building, or the audit building, the audit general building, that remains affected. But in general, yes, Bangkok is back to normal.
Okay, that's some relief for people who are there. Good to know, Brian. Thank you so much for joining us from the ground. I also have with me Dr. O.P. Mishra, Director at the Ministry of Earth Sciences, joining us from India. Dr. Mishra, thank you so much for speaking to Newsx World. I want to understand from your perspective, what really becomes the situation on the ground, sir, for people in earthquake-struck regions? For how many days do scientists and other experts then warn governments to be prepared for aftershocks, for tremors, and perhaps, God forbid, another earthquake altogether?
Yeah, you see, the main shock of the magnitude 7.7, 7.5 onwards, it was, of course, the source zone was in Myanmar. But whatever the main shock rupture propagated to the Thailand, Bangkok, because actually too much harm, too much losses of the lives and properties in Myanmar, and some also in Bangkok. Now the most relaxing thing is that till now 15 to 16 aftershocks has already been occurred in the area. This means that the main shock energy, whatever the seismic energy or strain energy accumulated, it has started to leak out and relaxation has started. So the thing is that there is no any major earthquake more than the 7 or 6.5, because now the after 3.9 and 4.2, 4.1 like that, which are the coming to the just a very perceptible earthquake, not the actually disastrous earthquake. So I think this has not much energy to propel to Bangkok, and also Bangkok is also not the seismogenic zone, earthquake prone zone itself. So I think the fastest rate of the release of the strain energy is a good signature that it was stabilizing. But at the same time, we have to see the risk auditing of the buildings. If the buildings has been dilapidated or damaged, or maybe cracks are there and which is not filled up, it could be take a time to now further widening the cracks in the building may creates the problem. So this is the issue that we to have prior to giving the entry of the people who are outside to their already damaged or cracked structure. It should be made or ensure that okay, the retrofitting has already been made. Whatever the damages, minor or little bit more than minor happened, it should be repaired. And I think the major risk of the earthquake after this main shock is not seems to be to heat of the magnitude 6, 7 or 6.5 or like that, because it is already reduced to 5 and 4.9, 3.7. So it is not now bouncing ground for more bigger earthquake or strongest earthquake in the region.
All right, Dr. O.P. Mishra, thank you so much for joining us on Newsx World with that perspective. Meanwhile, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has spent a handful of hours in Greenland today on a whirlwind trip alongside his wife Usha and Trump's National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. The Vice President visited the U.S. space base in the far north of the Arctic island, where Vance spoke with troops. He reinforced President Donald Trump's vow to take control of the island, saying that this would be achieved through appealing to the people of Greenland and not through military means. Here is what J.D. Vance has said.
Our message to Denmark is very simple. You have not done a good job by the people of Greenland. You have underinvested in the people of Greenland, and you have underinvested in the security architecture of this incredible, beautiful landmass filled with incredible people. That has to change. And because it hasn't changed, this is why President Trump's policy in Greenland is what it is.
Meanwhile, the Foreign Minister of Denmark has also replied. Listen in.
Being said these days, many accusations and many allegations have been made. And of course, we are open to criticism. But let me be completely honest. We do not appreciate the tone in which is being delivered. This is not how you speak to your close allies. And I still consider Denmark and the United States to be close allies. We respect that the United States needs a greater military presence in Greenland, as Vice President Vance mentioned this evening. We, Denmark and Greenland, are very much open to discussing this with you, with an open mind. We still have the defense agreement from 1951. It offers ample opportunity for the United States to have a much stronger military presence in Greenland, if that is what.
The Prime Minister of Denmark said that Denmark is a good and strong ally for everyone in the NATO alliance. He further added, "We have significantly increased defense spending. For many years, we have stood side by side with the Americans in very difficult situations. Therefore, it is not an accurate way for the Vice President to refer to Denmark." Joining me on the broadcast is Mr. Jim Rice, Professor of International Law. Professor Rice, I want to first begin by understanding your assessment of the growing developments between the United States of America, Greenland and Denmark. What do you make of the current situation and the statements that have come in?
For having me on, can you hear me?
Yes. Professor Rice, go ahead.
Okay, thanks again for having me on. I think, as with many of the people around the world, I'm just confounded and dismayed by the statements of J.D. Vance, the Vice President. I believe that he's really not telling the truth and he's distorting the picture. Denmark has been one of the closest allies that the United States has had since the Second World War. They fought with Americans in Afghanistan and supported us completely in NATO. They are more than fulfilling their obligations to spend 2.5% of GDP now on defense. So honestly, what Trump and Vance are doing is counterproductive and deeply destructive.
Professor Rice, why do you think Greenland has become such an important topic for the American president in this term?
That's hard to say. You really have to try to get into the mind of Donald Trump, and that's something that I can't do, and I wouldn't want to do. But it seems to me that this is one of Trump's kind of misguided fantasies. He sees himself, I believe, as some kind of modern day imperial king or emperor, and he wishes to expand the territory of the United States. Again, I think that the world has long since moved past the era of imperialism. The people of Denmark and the people of Greenland want nothing to do with this. I believe that 90% of the people of Greenland want nothing to do with Trump's foolish plan.
All right, Professor Rice, thank you so much for joining us on Newsx World with your thoughts. In other news, the arrest of March 19 of Istanbul's opposition mayor Erkem İmamoğlu on corruption charges. His supporters say that our force has sparked the most significant anti-government protests in Turkey in over a decade, in a major test for President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. After over a week of nighttime street protests, the Republican People's Party on Saturday mobilized hundreds of thousands of people for a giant rally in Istanbul, calling for the release of İmamoğlu, seen as the candidate with the best chance of defeating Erdogan at the ballot box after almost a quarter of a century in power. Nearly 2,000 people have been arrested, including some journalists who had been covering the protests. A Swedish journalist was also detained on his arrival in Turkey to cover the protests. The Turkish presidency has said that he has been arrested on charges of membership in an armed terrorist organization and for insulting the president. The presidency said, known for anti-Turkey news and his closeness to the terrorist organization PKK, the banned Kurdish militant group. They also added that this arrest decision has no connection whatsoever to journalistic activities. Let's take a look at what the protesters have to say.
Çünkü biz hak, hukuk, adalet için buradayız. Şimdi ülkemizde maalesef gerçekten hukuksuz işler gerçekleşmekte. Yani hukuka güven kalmadı, öyle söyleyeyim. Hukuka güven kalmadı. Hukuka güven kalmadığı için biz de dolayısıyla en doğal hakkımız olan protesto hakkımızı
deyip buraya gelemeyen insanları gerçekten çok kınıyorum. Çünkü bir vatan ve millet için hep beraber toplum olarak kalmak zorundayız. Çünkü dünyamızı biz yönetiyoruz, halk yönetiyor. Herhangi başımızda olan insanlar değil, bizim bu dünyayı kurtarmamız gerektiğini düşündüğüm için bugün burada olarak...
I have with me Professor Madhav Nalapa, the editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, joining us on the broadcast to give us his perspective. Professor Nalapat, in your assessment, what really will be the next steps for Erdogan as far as the discontent on the ground is now concerned?
Devika, in my view, this is the tipping point, or very close to a tipping point. The fact is that the Turks and Turkey was known as a country that basically opposed Wahhabism in the Arabian Peninsula. And now, in an ironic turn of history, Erdogan is seeking to re-establish Wahhabism in Turkey, transplanted from Saudi Arabia at a time when Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is publicly saying and very strongly acting also to remove influence of Wahhabism, because he recognizes the destructiveness that this is causing not only the Saudi image, but the future of an economy which has to depend after some time on non-fossil fuel exports. So I'd like to say, Devika, that this is an ironic transformation of the roles of a country. And now we have the İmamoğlu coming in defense of the traditional Turkish position, which is in defense of secularism, which is against Wahhabism, and confronting President Erdogan, who is completely embraced Wahhabism in total disregard of the principles set up by the founders of Turkey. Now, it was absolutely astonishing that this is happening. I mean, Ataturk will be spinning in his grave, at what is happening in his beloved Turkey. But the reality of the situation is that this is the way it is developing. And I'd like to point out that, in my view, the tipping point is either reached or very close to be reached. And as we saw in other parts of the world. Ultimately, when you have a tipping point, then public protest becomes too large to smother with any kind of repressive measures. And if you look at the crowds that are there in Turkey, and not only in Istanbul, not only in Ankara, but in smaller cities as well. Well, the reality is, I think Erdogan is on the way out, and he may fight for some time. He may use the most horrible methods, as he always does. But finally, the writing is on the wall, and Turkey will return to its original moderate roots, Devika.
Absolutely. Professor Nalapa, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. Well, that's all that we have time for. We will continue to bring more news updates from around the world.